Hello everyone. So in the last video we covered different types of data and data categories in our data science playlist. So now time to move on to our second playlist, and this is going to be an interesting one. So over in this video we will discuss a bit about what is a data set and what are different kind of measures, different kind of statistical measures to measure these data sets, measures for data sets. Cool. So let's get started. And first, let's understand what's a data set. So I have written an exclusive blog also on this, like I had done for the previous video as well. I'll put this link in the description. You can access it there. And as we are discussing, what is a data set? So it just refers to an organized data, typically arranged in rows and columns. So if I have any kind of data, even if it's an Excel kind of thing, wherein I have one row for, let's say, IDs, and I have another row for, let's say, names. So I am arranging my data in rows and columns. So this is a kind of a data set. So now there are different kinds of data sets. So one obvious data set is tabular data set. So this is the data set that we come across in our day-to-day work, Excel's, anything, Google Sheets. So this is used in day-to-day work. And then another kind of data set that we know about is called time series data set. So time series data set is typically a data set that varies, that typically shows a data that varies over a period of time. The best example of it is stock prices, or you can say Bitcoin prices, anything that varies with time, and that kind of collection of data falls into this kind of data set known as time series data set. Then we have some other data sets as well: text data set, image data set, then we have video data set. So these kind of data sets, for example, text data set is essentially a collection of textual files. Image data set is essentially a collection of image files, and same goes for the video data set as well. And these are very necessary for what everyone is building nowadays, known as LLMs. So the best example of this would be ChatGPT. So for these kind of applications, LLM models, these kind of data sets are extremely important. So now we understand what is a data set, but we need some kind of measures that we can use to parse through these data sets. So I'm not creating any notes because everything is written here in detail in this blog. So you can also refer this blog if you need some kind of notes. But this video is more of just for explanation purposes. So now, if we understand what's a data set, now we can focus on what kind of measures we have to measure these kind to make sense of this data set. So there are typically three measures. There are more, but typically I'm just describing three here. One is mean, another is median, and one more is mode. So I'm quite sure you would have heard about these in your elementary school classes, mathematics classes. But here we are gonna take a different view of learning is, and we are gonna understand why mode is necessary, why median is necessary, and why do we have different kind of statistical measures. Why just not one? Why just not mean? So in what are the kind of use cases where we can use median, where we can use mode? So that is something kind of what I plan to discuss here. Now, before we get into that detail, so briefly, what is mean? So let's say I have a data set here ready with me. So mean would essentially be the average of this entire data set. That is the sum of all the numbers and just divided by the number of elements in there. And I already have calculated the mean for this, and it would be 35,833.33. And then we have median. So median is essentially the middle element of the data set. Now, if it's an odd data set, then the middle element would be obviously the middle one. But if it's an even data set like this one, then the median is the sum of the middle two elements. So here it would be the sum of 3000 plus 4000 divided by 2. Not sum, the average of two middle elements. So here it will be 3000 plus 4000, that's 7000 divided by 2, that is 3500. So I have got that calculated as well. So I'll just note down these values. Why I'm noting these values is it will be essential once we try to understand why median is required and why median might be better to use in some cases over mean. But before that, let's also discuss what's mode. So mode is typically how many times. So as I explained here, it's the mode in a data set refers to the value that appears the most frequently here. So unlike the mean and median, which measures central tendency by averaging, let's okay, that is something you can read about later. But typically, let's just discuss about this line. The mode in a data set refers to the value that appears most frequently. Now, sometimes there might be no mode because here, if we say there is no value that is repeating itself. Now, let's say if I have one more value here, 1000. Now, in this case, the mode becomes 1000 because 1000 is repeating twice. That is the most frequently repeated value. So here there is no mode. Cool. Anyways, for mode, let's create one more data set. Let's say 1, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here the mode is obviously 1 because this is the most frequently used number. Now let's come to an interesting use case where why should I use median over mode? Why should I use median over mean? Now, see here, this is an interesting scenario. So here I have values of 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000, and after that, 200,000. Now, let's say these are the salaries of people in a typical neighborhood. So there are middle class people with salaries of $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. But then there's a rich person who has a salary of $200,000. Now, if I refer mean as an statistical measure that would give me a rough estimate of what is the average salary of the neighborhood, then it gives me the average of 35,833. Now, this is clearly way over than most of the salaries. It's way over than 1000, way over than 2000, way over than 3000, way over than 4000, way over than 5000. And why did we reach to this kind of number is because of this 200,000. So this 200,000 kind of number is called an outlier. So in the data set, sometimes there would be outliers. Now, because of this outlier, so outlier is typically data that is way different from the remaining pieces of the data. Now, because of this outlier, the entire mean is kind of messed up. So now you really can't rely on this number to give you the average salary of the people in the neighborhood. Now, this is where median comes handy in this kind of scenario where you want to get some avoid outliers, I would say, because here median is not dependent on this 200,000 number. It is just typically the middle value. And yes, it gives us a fair value, 3,500. So 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000, 5000. This makes sense. This makes kind of sense that this is the average kind of salary of the people in the neighborhood. Okay. And now considering another scenario about mode, so where mode might be necessary. So let's say you are selling different kind of t-shirts. Now there is one typical t-shirt that is selling more frequently than the other t-shirts. So in that case, the number of sold data, the number of selling data of that typical t-shirt would be very frequent. So then you get to know, okay, this kind of t-shirt is being sold a lot number of times. So I need to maybe increase the production capacity of it, or I can increase the cost of it because it's in high demand. So in those kind of scenarios, in letting those kind of decision making, the mode can be very necessary. So yeah, so that is how we measure the that's how what kind of measures we can use for data sets. That's great. So that was it from me for this video. Stay tuned. There is one more interesting video, another interesting video coming up for variance and standard deviation. It's a bit of a complicated measure, but it's going to be interesting. I'm going to try my best to explain it in the simplest terms. So stay tuned, do subscribe, and yeah, do let me know if there are any queries in the comments. Thank you.